The attack came without warning. Magnus Carlsen was giving a lecture at one of Aronian's academies in Switzerland when armed security officers burst through the doors, claiming to investigate allegations of fraudulent chess instruction and student exploitation. But as the fabricated charges were read aloud, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "That's quite enough." Viswanathan Anand stepped into the room with the quiet authority that had made him a chess legend. And behind him came a sight that would change everything. A coalition of the greatest players in chess history, united to defend the future of the game. You see, what followed would prove that when the integrity of chess itself is threatened, the legends who built its reputation will emerge from retirement to protect what they created. Because Kasparov's sleeper agents had made one fatal mistake. They had attacked not just Magnus and Aronian, but the very idea that chess could be taught with honor and played with integrity. Magnus watched in amazement as the room filled with figures he had idolized throughout his career. Garry Kasparov's former rival, Vladimir Kramnik, stood beside Anand with a folder of legal documents. Boris Spassky, the legendary former world champion, observed the proceedings with the calm dignity that had defined his career. Even Judit Polgar, the strongest female player in history, had traveled from Hungary to lend her support. "Gentlemen," Anand addressed the security officers with polite firmness, "I believe you'll find that your investigation is based on fabricated evidence provided by individuals with a documented history of chess fraud and manipulation." The lead officer looked confused as Kramnik presented comprehensive documentation exposing the sleeper agents who had initiated the raid, bank records showing payments from Kasparov's network, communication logs proving coordination between corrupted officials. Most damning of all, evidence that the students who had filed complaints were actually paid actors with no connection to chess education. This raid is part of a systematic campaign to destroy legitimate chess education, Anand continued, his voice carrying the authority of decades at the highest levels of competitive chess. The same individuals who corrupted tournament results for profit are now attempting to prevent the next generation from learning chess with integrity. Magnus felt a surge of emotion as he realized what was happening. The greatest players in chess history hadn't just come to defend him and Aronian. They had come to defend the principles that had guided their own careers and made chess worthy of respect. "Why?" Magnus asked Anand as the security officers retreated with their fabricated evidence exposed. "Why risk your reputation by getting involved in this fight?" Anand's expression became serious. "Magnus, we spent our careers building chess into something beautiful and meaningful. Do you think we're going to stand by quietly while criminals destroy what we created?" Over the next hours, the chess legends revealed the scope of their own investigation into Kasparov's network. For months, they had been quietly gathering evidence, documenting corruption, and preparing for exactly this kind of counterattack. "We knew Kasparov would try to discredit anyone who exposed his operations," Kramnik explained. "So we began preparing our own response the moment we learned about the rebellion." Spassky, speaking with the measured wisdom of his years, added, "Young players like you and Karyakin were brave to fight openly. But sometimes experience and patience can be more effective than courage and speed." The legends had spent decades navigating chess politics and understood better than anyone how to counter the kind of reputation warfare that sleeper agents specialized in. More importantly, their combined credibility was virtually unassailable. Attacking them would only validate their claims about systematic corruption. "What the sleeper agents don't understand," Polgar observed, "is that their attack on educational integrity threatens something larger than any individual player or academy. They're attacking the idea that chess can be a force for positive development." As news of the failed raid spread, Magnus watched something remarkable unfold. Chess communities worldwide began rallying to defend the Academy network, not because they understood the complex details of the conspiracy, but because they trusted the legends who were vouching for educational integrity. This is how you really defeat a suppression campaign, Anand explained as reports came in from around the world. You don't fight false accusations with angry denials. You respond with truth supported by unquestionable credibility. The chess legends had essentially created an impenetrable shield around the Academy network. Any attack on Magnus, Aronian, or their educational programs would have to go through players whose integrity had been proven over decades of competitive excellence. But the sleeper agents weren't finished. They escalated their campaign by targeting the legends themselves, attempting to manufacture scandals around matches from decades past. False allegations about historical game fixing, fabricated evidence of past corruption, even attempts to suggest that the legends' support for educational reform was motivated by financial interests. They're getting desperate, Kramnik observed as they reviewed the latest wave of attacks. Attacking current players is one thing, but attempting to rewrite chess history is quite another. The historical revisionism backfired spectacularly. Chess historians, journalists, and fans who had initially been confused by the complex conspiracy allegations became outraged when they saw attempts to falsify their beloved chess heritage. You can manipulate current events, Spassky noted with dry humor, but you cannot change what millions of people witnessed with their own eyes decades ago. The failed attacks on chess history triggered something the legends had been hoping for: a broad awakening within the chess community about the importance of protecting institutional integrity. Players who had been passive observers suddenly became active defenders of educational values. Magnus, Anand said as they planned their next moves, what you and Aronian started as a fight against corruption has become a movement for educational excellence. That's a much more powerful foundation for lasting change. The Academy network began expanding rapidly as chess communities worldwide requested their own educational programs based on character development and independent thinking. The sleeper agents' attacks had inadvertently created massive publicity for exactly the kind of chess education they had tried to suppress. There's something beautiful about this, Polgar reflected, as they reviewed requests from dozens of countries for new academy programs. Evil intended to destroy education, but instead created demand for better education. Magnus realized that the chess legends had taught him something crucial about sustainable victory. Defeating corrupt individuals was important, but building institutions that could resist future corruption was far more valuable. The sleeper agents represent Kasparov's past, Anand explained, but the Academy network represents chess's future. Which do you think chess players around the world will choose to support? As the legacy destruction campaign continued to fail, Magnus received intelligence that Kasparov himself was becoming increasingly isolated. Even his remaining loyal agents were beginning to question the wisdom of attacking chess legends whose reputations had been built over decades of honest competition. He made a fundamental miscalculation, Kramnik observed. Kasparov assumed that chess players would prioritize loyalty to him over loyalty to chess itself. But most players became interested in chess because of what we represented, not what he represented. The tide had definitively turned. Instead of being forced to defend against false accusations, Magnus and Aronian found themselves leading a global movement for educational reform with the backing of chess's most respected figures. What happens now? Magnus asked as they planned the next phase of expansion. Now we build, Anand replied simply. We create so many educational programs based on integrity that corruption becomes impossible to re-establish. We train so many teachers and organizers committed to honesty that dishonest people can't find positions of authority. The chess legends had provided more than just protection. They had shown Magnus a vision of what victory actually looked like. Not the dramatic defeat of enemies, but the systematic construction of something better. Magnus, Anand said as their meeting concluded, you began this fight to expose corruption, but your real achievement will be the educational network you helped build. Long after people forget the details of Kasparov's conspiracy, they'll benefit from the institutions you and Aronian created. As Magnus prepared to return to his work, expanding the Academy network, he carried with him a new understanding of legacy. The chess legends had spent their careers not just winning games, but building something worthy of protection. Now it was his turn to contribute to that construction. The war for chess's soul had entered its final phase, not destruction, but creation, and Magnus Carlsen was ready to help build a chess world worthy of the legends who had defended it. The sleeper agents continued their attacks, but they were now fighting against something much larger than any conspiracy. They were fighting against the united will of everyone who believed chess could make the world better.